Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Let's Talk ABM with me, Declan Mulkeen, CMO of account-based marketing agency Strategic ABM. ABM is one of the hottest B2B strategies right now, helping companies to win, grow and retain their most important accounts. This podcast allows me to spend some time talking to account-based marketing leaders about their ABM programs and share their insights with other B2B marketers, wherever you are on your ABM journey. So today I'm joined by Anna Cymbalist, who's the head of ABM at Influ2. Anna, thanks so much for joining us today.
I'm really happy to join. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's kick off. Obviously, Let's Talk ABM. We're going to talk about account-based marketing for the next half an hour or so. And one thing that we find is really important with account-based marketing is for the organization to define it and to make sure that everyone agrees with that definition and can actually march behind that definition of ABM in that organization. So for Influ2, how have you defined ABM there?
Yeah, that's a very good question because I'm sure you've heard so many definitions of ABM. I've heard so many definitions of ABM myself. Like once I had this conversation where an ABM leader shared his approach, and their entire ABM program was just a podcast. But they had an incredible 60% conversion rate from that. And I'm like, well, you're doing great then. But yeah, for Influ2, ABM is very outbound focused. So we would call any activity that we do that is aimed at converting accounts from the list that we're going after an ABM, like a part of ABM. So for us, that would include advertising that we do through our own product. That would include everything our SDRs are doing. So their sequences, their calls, them working with contact level intent. We will include events that I host as part of our ABM program because we only advertise that mostly to the accounts we're going after. And, events that we're going to, conferences, and that we know that accounts that we're interested in are going to be there. That's also part of ABM. And I really want to do some gift giving, but that's something I need more capacity for, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, for us, ABM is something that we do to convert specific accounts.
It's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned about gift giving as well, or the kind of the wider direct marketing, and there's some really interesting ways you can make that work for you. So let's just talk about the program there that you're running at Influ2. Just a few questions around that. Let's kick off with the first one. What was the original challenge that you faced there that you said to yourself, ABM is the right strategy to meet that challenge head on?
So I didn't really have that challenge that told me I have to tackle it with ABM because I actually inherited an ABM program. I joined Influ2 as an account-based marketing manager, and then the head of ABM was our current head of marketing. So basically, I already had an ABM program in place, but I did face challenges, and the challenges is that we have a very defined ICP, and we optimized our ICP around retention. So that means I work with kind of a narrow pool of accounts. And usually what people do is, you build an ABM program and you just pour audience through that funnel and see who converts, right? And you just keep pouring and pouring, especially if your ICP is wide. But when your ICP isn't wide, you have to they're not pouring out, they're coming back. They're coming back to the top. So I had a couple of challenges. The first challenge was, how do I maintain the level of engagement with the audience for the SDRs to work with them? And how do I keep converting them? Because if you do the same thing over and over again, the conversion rates are going to plummet, and you're just going to have a ABM program that isn't working. So I had to keep converting accounts from the same audience pool, and yeah, I had to come up with solutions for that, and I can walk you through that as well.
So a couple of questions on that, really, Anna. So obviously, it's customer expansion or customer growth, or is it new logo? When you said that your ICP is very narrow, And you mentioned about retention. So is it much more focused on existing customers?
No, we focus on new logo. Well, I personally focus on new logo. From time to time, I will do some ad hoc programs for existing customers. When AEs and customer success comes to me and asks, "Hey, we have this opportunity. They are interested in this and that. Let's promote it to them." So I'll do an ad hoc campaign for them in a program. But yeah, I think like 90% of my time I dedicate to new logo acquisition.
And then you also mentioned then that your ICP is quite narrow. Is that
Well, yeah, yeah. I actually, so for me personally, I think selecting the right audience to go after is your number one priority. And I'm really grateful that I'm in a situation where the audience selection, it was a company level initiative where our ops did research and looked into a lot, data points that we could collect to see what makes a profile of a happy Influ2 customer. And let's not go into detail, but that's basically we figured out that the maturity of the organization really influences how successful they are at using Influ2. And also the industry, because we sell to marketers and different industries have their different approaches to marketing. So well, SaaS isn't really an industry, but it's an approach. But SaaS companies, they really are among the trendsetters of marketing, and they are into tech a lot. So when a SaaS company, like a mature SaaS company, gets Influ2, they really know what to do with it, and they're very happy about it as well.
It's a fascinating point. If I can ask you one question on that, you mentioned in there about your ICP and about you've done a lot of work around that to know which accounts to go after. And you mentioned something about one of the leading indicators of whether they're going to be a client or a potential good client of yourselves is the maturity of the organization. What everyone has a different definition of maturity. What do you mean in your context of maturity?
Yeah, so they have to have a certain level of knowledge about what they're doing already. They have to do outbound because Influ2 is a great outbound tool. And they have to have resources to maintain a mature outbound program. So let's say, if they are looking to just launch random ads at a bunch of audience and wait for form fills, it's not going to be a perfect use case for Influ2 because, that's just a bad way of doing outbound. And so we have to be on the same page in terms of like how they're going to use the product because we want to make sure that we deliver results and that they're happy. So yeah, making sure that they do have enough resources, they are on the same page with us in terms of what good outbound should look like. So that's something we really look into.
No, it's very good. I think, it's not dissimilar to ourselves at the agency where I work that we talk about maturity a lot as well. And it's about where they are on that kind of ABM journey and if they're relatively immature in terms of how they're running their ABM program, if indeed they're running one. And that's normally an indication that perhaps they need a little bit more education first before they're ready to launch ABM or to get deeper with an ABM.
And
Go ahead. Sorry, Anna.
yeah, a new term. I recently hosted this webinar about account-based go-to-market. So that is something like that would be a perfect customer for us because um, when an organization treats ABM as a cute little experiment where they select like random top 50 accounts they want to convert without giving it a lot of thought, then it's not a mature approach to ABM. But a mature approach to ABM is when, you aligned on the audience with your sales, with your customer success, with everyone, that you're bringing the right type of accounts in and that you're converting the right opportunities for sales to be happy about and then for customer success to be happy about as well. Because customer success is often in the trenches figuring out like what did you promise you know um so yeah, and I think when you're aligned on the audience you get buy-in from entire organization on this account-based approach, and I think that's crucial because you will get the support, you will get the budget, and everyone will understand how exactly you're contributing to business goals of the company rather than treat it as like a fun cute experiment to see if you could like a few personalized content pieces can convert someone.
Yeah, no, very, very good points. I think you won't hear me arguing against anything that you just said. So they're all really, really good points. And I think that alignment, um, that the company aligns around the kind of accounts and the customers that they want to have and keep and grow is absolutely. Talk to me there, Anna, about the experience. So obviously you talk about new logos, you talk about, using your own technology. You're very clear about your ICP, you're very clear about the maturity of those kind of organizations that you want to work with. Tell us what kind of experience do you take them through? I mean, paint us a picture of what kind of they how do they see you?
Yeah, yeah, okay. So as I mentioned, we keep working with the same audience. So to make sure that their experience is unique every time, we have the system where we have engagement cycles. So during your first engagement cycle, you will go through a set of ads that will be shown to the prospect while they're being outreached by the SDR team. And like a lot of things happen during those 3 months. So it's going to be just like value proposition, thought leadership, trust. You'll get a sequence, like the entire buying committee will get a sequence from the SDRs and cold calling. So we'll be trying to actively engage you with the content and the actions that we have. And the engagement cycle, some of the cool things from the engagement cycle, let's say during the research, we identified some traces of code of technology that we think works great within Flute 2 or that we compete against sometimes. So, our research team will mark that in the CRM, and that would automatically put the prospect from that account into a pre-made set of ad campaigns where we talk about that, where we address this specific point, and that's one of the level of personalization that I have. And actually, because we do contact level advertising, very often when people hear about it, they're like, "Oh, great! This is a great tool to do one-to-one on scale." And it is like you have the technology to do that, but what people don't understand is the level of one-to-one that you need to have on every stage of your program. So it's not just like slapping a logo on the creative and serving them like a random landing page. So yeah, I'm kind of going away from the topic. Let me go back. So yeah, so you'll have a 3 months engagement cycle with different types of personalization, but where I actually segment audience based on the information that we have about that segment of the audience. If that doesn't work, we will send the account to nurture. And nurture is like low intensity brand awareness, 3 months time. But the aim there is to stay top of mind because very often, your engagement might have been amazing and worked, but it's just not the right timing. They don't have the budget or something's incorrect. So staying top of mind and being just a click away from your prospect is something that I really believe in. Um, yeah, and then once they are ready, we recollect the buying group and put them through another engagement cycle. And in terms of content, that engagement cycle is going to be, well, hopefully like 70% different from what we've shown to them previously because, we update the content based on its performance, you know, weekly.
Yeah.
So,
So to summarize, you have a kind of an engagement cycle, as you mentioned, 3 months that you take them through. You monitor the level of engagement, both from the SDR and from the actual paid media and the various channels that you're actually looking to target the audience with. You also kind of break down the decision-making group or the buying committee and try to talk to them almost on a one-to-one level. And then
another
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to add. So another thing, I gave you the overview of the account, but actually another thing that I've done in order to keep the level of engagement is divide our buying committee by personas. So different people in the same account will have different experience. And there is a couple of factors that affects that. So what type of persona that is, and also their personal online media consumption habits. So thanks to using Flu2, I don't have to play this betting game of, what channel am I gonna launch ads to. I upload everything to Influ2 and the algorithm finds them where they spend time. So, let's say you are a VP of marketing who doesn't do social media and just likes reading online articles. So we'll be hitting you through those websites with ads. Or let's say you are chronically online and you spend your time on Facebook a lot. So that's where you're going to be having, that's where you're going to be seeing ads. So yeah, our it's going to be different experience. It's going to be different content that we're serving, and that's actually like dividing the audience by persona is something that helped me keep the engagement level really high and even increase it with the old audience. Because I was expecting it's going to go down, but it's actually went up since we started adjusting the content to the persona type.
That's fascinating. I think did you just say they're chronically online?
Yeah, it's a term.
I'd never heard of that term before, but
Yeah, it's a term when you're chronically online and the online. I think I'm chronically
I was
online.
going to say, am I a chronic onliner? I mean, how would I define myself as being
It
chronic?
just you have to look at the screen time on your phone, and if
I
it's
don't want to do that. My wife will complain otherwise.
if it's
So
if it's more than 15 hours per week, you are chronically online. I think even like 8
I'm going to
hours.
blame the kids. I'm going to blame my kids for grabbing my phone in that case.
I'm an iPad person. I can't do anything unless I'm watching something.
Ah, good, good. Okay. And let's just dig into that another. I've got another question about that actually. Um, Actually, before we do, just one second. So, talk about the campaign and the experience and everything you take your target accounts through. Um, a question around attribution, measurement. What are you using your own platform to measure, or are you using a bit more of a kind of a manual approach? What everyone has their own approach to measurement. What are you doing there?
Yeah, everyone does. So, on a strategic level, we measure ABM influence and pipeline and revenue. So, um, basically, the goals that I have, they are all tied around pipeline and revenue, just like the salesperson. Tactically, I will look at a lot more things. So I'll try to figure out at what stage of the engagement cycle the account is converting, like, the person is converting. I'll look at like how many engagement cycles does it take. And of course, I'm going to look at the CTR. I mean, the CTR isn't like it helps me measure the room temperature, right? To see whether the audience overall is like liking their liking their experience. But one thing that I found fascinating was we have this one type of advertising. It's called high impact. Like we made it up, basically. That's a type of ad when I put the face of the SDR that's reaching out to the prospect, and we automatically show that ad with the SDR, like introducing themselves while the person is in the outreach sequence. And that ad had like, on average, like really low CTR. I was like, let's kill it. I think it's useless. Let's kill it. But then I was like, okay, but do people convert after clicking on this ad? And what we found was that actually this is when most of them convert.
Hmm.
Like this, like the message there and like the approach there is what works. Maybe we just need to improve the visual of the ad and just increase the CTR. So that was an interesting finding. And another thing that I like is that I actually get to see the engagement, like the real engagement of the audience that I care about. Because when I'm launching for usual channels, I'll be seeing like they're going to optimize around clickers. They're going to optimize around like to give you like a higher result to make you more eager to launch. And within Flu2, I actually see the actual reality. I mean, sometimes it's harsh, you know, but I actually see and I can measure how my actual audience is reacting to the messaging and to the creatives that I show. So yeah, and just to sum up, we look at like we are aligned with the company's business goals, and um, we have the marketing influenced approach we see of like how like I think last year, about 86% of all outbound opportunities were ABM influenced. So there was a level of engagement with the ads from those people who then converted.
Well, hopefully somebody didn't criticize you for the missing 14%.
No, thanks God they didn't.
So
Thank God.
talking about, but that leads in nicely actually to the next question I wanted to ask you, which was results. So I think you've answered the question basically by saying 80%, 86% is coming through your ABM efforts.
Yeah, we actually we didn't measure 2024. It's not over yet, but when we compared 2022 to 2023, we've seen like with this approach of, the one that I explained, we've seen 123% growth in generated revenue um, when compared to, ABM results. So we're comparing the growth of ABM performance.
Well, I mean, that's an excellent advertisement for the power of good targeting, good account selection, good ICP, the use of your technology, and a little bit of creativity. I'm guessing as well, right?
Yeah, I was thrilled.
So the point you were talking before about these kind of personalized ads, I just wanted to ask you a question about that. Actually, maybe the audience might be surprised to hear about this, but whether the issue around you could target individuals. Um, Perhaps without going too much into the weeds, um, tell us briefly, how does that work?
Good question. Um, so basically, Influ2 partners with first-party ad platforms. So whenever you sign up to like, Meta service, whenever you sign up to Google, whenever you sign up to all of those places where ads are served, you give your consent to the ads being served to you. You agree to their terms.
Mm.
So, and the ad platforms, when they serve ads to you, they use that consent that you've given to them to figure out who to serve what. So the ad platform actually knows exactly who they're serving their ads to. And we just have an algorithm to that's going into the weeds, but we have an algorithm to make sure that the right ad goes to the right person according to the consent that they've given to the ad platform. So that means we don't have 100% match rate, but that means we have like almost 100% match rate with the audience that we could actually serve ads to. And then there is another level of control that we have is, reporting back to you. So not only we get the information from the ad platform about, the person they've served ad to, an ML-based algorithm. I'm not an expert, but yeah, it's an ML-based algorithm that actually decodes the information to report on that engagement, on that impression back to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure some people know what that means. But
Hopefully, I
yeah,
mean,
feel free in the
our
comments.
developers will definitely know, but
No, no, your team 100%. And okay, I mean, that's fascinating. You can reach that level of granularity. But linked to that, you mentioned something before, which I thought was interesting around the word interest. And you talked about these 3-month sales, 3-month cycles that you basically put target accounts and the different personae within those target accounts through. And you mentioned about maintaining interest. Just out of curiosity, because 3 months is a long time, right? Um, they say a week is a long time in politics. So 3 months is a long time. How do you? And obviously, if I'm sitting here and if I'm one of your, what do you call them? Chronic onliners, and I'm online all the time, which means I'm basically seeing you everywhere, whether it's I'm reading the Guardian or whatever, BBC or whatever I'm seeing. How do you maintain that interest?
you have to have a lot of creatives. Well, what I do is so Influ2 lets you build ad journeys, buyer journeys. So you could change ads based on the amount of impressions that you served. You can change ads based on the time the person has like been seeing this ad,
Mm.
based on the number of clicks they did on the creative. Um, and basically, what I do right now is I change the creative every 2 weeks. So you see different content constantly. And why 2 weeks is because, based on my personal findings, basically, creative usually works for 3 weeks. So when they're going into their third week, the engagement usually goes down because the person has been, saturated enough with this. So yes, regular change of creatives. And then another thing that you can do is, um, let's say, hmm, if you have a situation where you have different offerings, right? You're selling apples, you're selling pears, and you're selling cherries. If the person engages with creatives about apples, that means they're interested in that. So to keep a level of engagement, uh, you can continue serving them information about apples, right? So that's the topic they're interested in. And basically, if I have a creative that talks about Influ2 in terms of ABM, and the person engages with that, I'm like, okay, so they're in the mindset of, ABM, and they like the context that I'm using here. So I'm going to be sending them more into the direction of that context. So that helps me really route the audience between the creatives that they will care, like hopefully will care about and
Yeah.
engage with.
Well, I think that's something we might need to dig into a bit more on a part two of this podcast with you. But one thing that just struck me when you were talking there, with regards to obviously a lot of talk about ABM clearly is about getting personal, right? And obviously there's a lot of negative noise out there in the market talking about technology and that ABM is not technology, etc. Where do you stand on that in terms of how the kind of the balance between the use of technology and the use of personalization, which actually talks to individuals or the individual accounts or the individuals within those accounts that they say, actually, you know what? Influ2 actually understands me and they're showing they understand me because of the way they're talking to me. Where do you see the balance?
So very often, what I hear is when people talk about personalization, they go on a personal level um, of the individual. And so you end up in a creepy situation. Like I was once researching, I fall into that trap too. I was once researching a prospect, and I ended up finding that's a funny story. I ended up finding like a whole photo album of the prospect with his wife in 2002 in Thailand. And I was like, now I've seen like why I was digging up information like how do I personalize? And that's a creepy that's a creepy situation. I was like, this is not gonna help me. So when we're talking about personalization, you can go the creepy way, which I don't recommend. You can go the AI way. Another story I'm really eager to share. I had a demo of a product, and they suggested that they can do AI level personalization, which I just think was like Chat GPT in a wrapper. But basically, I was like, could you please like demonstrate me some sort of personalization that you offer? And AI suggested, hi, John, whoever, taking your, I'll never forget this, taking your experience in marketing and brewing with brewing. He probably was a marketer at like a beer company or something, and brewing. We think our solution can help you with your unique challenges. And what kind of personalization is that? So that's another route that people sometimes like taking when they're trying to scale. Personally, I think that personalization in B2B is about understanding your audience and catering to their business needs, right? It's also on a personal level, hitting your goals, quota, stuff like that. But basically understanding the use case and understanding how your product can help them achieve their needs. So figuring out what their needs are and building like a playbook around their needs with their product is something where what I think personalization is. That's why we do technographics campaign. That's why we do persona campaigns. That's why you know I'll look at the closed loss reasons, and maybe sometimes I'll be able to segment accounts based on the input from the sales context that we already have with them, and have a campaign for them because the context is very similar. And I think that's the personalization that um, people are expecting. They don't want you to know the name of their dog in your email outreach. They want to know how your product is going to make their life easier at work.
Yeah, it's fair point. I mean, I think the word creepy there is interesting because I think that's the thing you need to avoid. And you and I, we both get bombarded with a whole bunch of creepy messages all the time. At least I do in my inbox. People purporting to know me, and they don't know me, and they've just seen three things about me online, and they've pulled those three together. But it's an interesting idea, really.
Yeah, I don't really get a lot of like nice personalization for some reason. I usually get, hey, brackets, name, comma, Anna, some like stuff that like botched email outreach. But yeah, I don't think people don't really personalize their outreach for me, unfortunately.
I think
I
you're
wish
right.
I
I
meant
think
that.
personalization that really works is are you actually talking to me? If you think you mentioned before about value proposition, so the value proposition in ABM is, what is it that's different about me when I want to talk to my customers? It's not what you're telling the market, it's what you're telling me. And then secondly is then, do you actually understand what we're trying to do, what our challenges are, where we're trying to head, what's our agenda, what keeps us awake at night? Can you actually show that you understand that? And therefore, is your solution, is your product aligned to that? Can you show me how it is aligned to that? Is it answering some of the questions that we've got open at the moment? And obviously, from an individual point of view, the personalization that comes in much more from an individual point of view is, well, what's my role in this whole thing? Going back to your point around the buying committee, I may well be the CFO in that buying committee. So clearly, I've got some issues and objectives and concerns about how we go about, because maybe I was burnt on a previous buying decision and we made a wrong decision and we got financially burnt. So therefore, I'm a little bit kind of wary. So how do you make sure that you address my concerns? So each individual, as you talked about in the buying committee, you can personalize to them as long as you have the information that you can find about them, or you've done some research or some insights, and then tick those off basically. Um, one thing else. Go ahead. Sorry, Anna. Go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just agreeing with you.
Well, so that's an unusual thing, but thank you. But so, one thing I was going to ask you. I know when we were talking before this recording, you mentioned to me that you also run pipeline progression programs, which I think is really interesting. Can you? Because obviously, you've got something in the pipe. It's actually working through, so it's not a fresh opportunity. It's not. It's actually at some stage, and you basically help the sales teams to kind of close those deals. So, could you share an example of how you do that?
Sure. So the product lets me build journey around the stage of the opportunity. So we have like, let's say, I remember 8 stages. Let's say you have an opportunity with Inflow 2. Once it's in a scheduled stage, I'll start showing you the face of the AE that you're going to have a call with, thanking you for finding the time to actually meet with them. Then once the opportunity changes, like the call takes place, the opportunity changes the stage, I'll be showing you another content that automatically, because I have this like preset in the product, like you will move to a different set of creatives alongside with the buying committee that we have identified. And you'll be seeing different ads there too. And I have like a few ads in there just in case, like I don't know exactly how much time this stage is going to take. So I make sure that you have enough content to consume that, it's not haunting you with the same thing. Then, and just think about it, what sales people usually send to their prospects on different stages of the sales cycle. Like, what are they going to sell them during procurement? It's going to be, GDPR compliance, SOC2 license, and stuff like that. So um, when you're a salesperson, you can only send that piece of content to them. You can only once or twice send them the case study. You don't know whether they've consumed it. You don't know whether they've read it. You don't know if it's helping you. And you only have one channel to deliver that. So when I have the ad channel, I can actually make sure that they read, if they don't take the time to read the case study, I'm going to show it to them in bits and make sure that they understand what we're talking about. And, it's just giving me and the sales a new channel to interact with their audience. And it's also a very nice way to communicate with the people. Sometimes you have people who are on the call and they're just mute and no camera. They're just there. You don't know who they are. They never talk to you, but you want them to consume some sort of content. So I'll be doing that through ads. And yeah, our salespeople are actually very keen on that. They will hunt me down if I'm not serving ads to some people. They're like, you have to. Like, what can we do to make them see it? So yeah, and that's that's an experience for every opportunity that we have, not just outbound, but everyone who comes in through any channel will give them that sort of experience. And again, for me, it's extra valuable because I'm demoing the product to them through their experience. So that's why I put a lot of effort into this.
Yeah, yeah. So perhaps linked to that, actually, when you talk about the different people on the call and that you can target them, etc. You one thing that you said that kind of I made a note of it when we were talking prior to this call was that you talked about that your ABM program is kind of used for the word was aggressive targeting, which I thought was a really interesting term, really. And I think you explain what you mean by that because I think it's an interesting concept.
Well, I think what I meant by aggressive is more precise because I use targeting for going after specific people. I'm not using targeting to boil the ocean and see what comes up, see what comes up. I'm not using targeting to do random brand awareness. I'm using targeting to do brand awareness, value proposition, like any sort of thing you can do with targeting for specific people. And like I'm not in a situation where I can just be like, oh, it's a 95 to 5% ratio of who's in market. I have to go after those people and I have to convince them that, hey, like if you're not in market, you're missing out. You have to be in market for us. And that's outbound, that's like outbound, it's kind of aggressive, right? And ads are usually just there. They're like, in somewhere in the background, and it's really hard to measure their influence. So what I mean is I can always measure my influence and I always go after the like, specific people.
I love that quote. You can always measure your influence. I think that if you're looking for a T-shirt for Christmas, maybe we should send you one with those on with that on it.
Yes, please do. Please
Okay.
do.
So talking about that, actually, MQL. When we were chatting before, one thing that I wrote down as well was that you're not a fan of MQLs, and they're still alive and they're still out there. Many companies still use them. Um, Tell us why you're not a fan of marketing qualified leads.
Well, I know why they exist, right? I've used that approach myself and I kind of had my burns with that approach. I think like everyone else did. Like, I mean, you need them. What are you gonna do? Like you're gonna look at the conversion rates, see from MQL to SQL, SEL, blah, blah, blah. And you will be able to do some predictions for your budgeting and for your goals. But MQL, like the issue that I see with MQL is first, you don't always know the quality of the MQLs that you're gonna get, and it changes. Like something that happened to me in the past in the previous organizations, we're like, okay, we have this MQL goal, right? And we figured out that that an amazing channel for MQLs that convert at a at a great level is Capterra paid search. And we're like, okay, let's put more money into Capterra paid search. And it didn't work. That we didn't get any more leads. The paid search became extremely expensive. And it's just like we exhausted the channel. So we're like, okay, let's do content syndication because we have this MQL goal, right? And we did content syndication and it brought us like more leads than we could ever hope for, but they were all disqualified by the sales team. And we ended up in a situation where we didn't have like the conversion rate that we expected. And also the sales hated us because, they had to spend 2 months disqualifying 300 people. So when you're optimizing, like when you're looking at MQLs as your main, like one of your main targets, you are optimizing for something so early in the funnel and something really unpredictable sometimes that you could be setting yourself up for failure. And another issue that I have with it, okay, let's say you bring the right MQLs, let's say they're converting at the rate you're expecting. What happens to them after they are a customer? Like are they opting out? Are they churning? Like are they a happy customer? Are they your advocates? Like how is it affecting the company in the long run? And if you don't see this, like if you're not optimizing for the long run results, you might as well be creating a bucket with holes in it, right? You're just, you'll end up in a situation where the amount of MQLs that you need to generate to hit your growth targets becomes, crazy. Like it becomes impossible. So That's the issue that I have with MQLs. I think it could be your hidden enemy when it comes to planning.
No, I think your point there, Anna, that we've all been burned. We have all been burned by MQLs, and we've also burnt a lot of people along the way, right? In terms of throwing hundreds of MQLs over the fence to our sales colleagues, and then wondering why on earth they're not dealing with them. And they were right. I mean, basically, the sales teams were right, and we were wrong, basically, in those previous life that we lived in the MQL world. And it's interesting, actually. One of the recent guests on Let's Talk ABM, Nora Conklin, who's principal analyst at Forrester, she says that a lot of the talk that she's seeing now from the market, from their customers, and the kind of the research they carry out, is that LTV, lifetime value, is turning into kind of the North Star for many ABM programs. And it goes to your point about, well, what happens after you win? Do they turn into a great customer, or are they a lousy customer? Do they disappear after 6 months, 12 months? Are they more hassle than they're worth? And I think lifetime value, actually, if we could all kind of move the ABM ship somewhat towards that as a North Star, that wouldn't be a bad thing.
I mean, that's how you get buy-in. That's how you get support from everyone, because when the entire organization knows that your effort, like, that's account based, when they know that you are going after the accounts and that are going to bring success in the long run, that are actually, there is data to prove that they are going to be a success in the long run. That's when sales get excited to get the call. That's when CSMs get excited to onboard them, because they're gonna be getting commission for that. So that's a win-win situation for everyone. And I mean, selecting the audience and making sure that you are going after that type of accounts is like the hardest task for an organization sometimes.
Let me ask you a question now. This question wasn't on my list 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, or even a year ago, and now obviously it's on my list now for all Let's Talk ABM guests. And that question really is the question of artificial intelligence, AI, because obviously it's everywhere, and it's going to be the present and the future of everything we do. I think you've got some thinking about this that you were sharing with me before, but tell us a little bit about your use of AI, your thinking around it, and perhaps anything that you can share with the audience about where you're heading with AI.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I like AI. I use ChatGPT all the time, but that's not the final product that I then put out into the world. And um, the moment when I have a problem with AI, when it's replacing humans completely. Right now you could have an AI tool take your homepage and the homepage of your prospect and generate a landing page. That's personalized, okay? But I mean, have you seen like completely raw AI generated content? Like, there is research that I can't reason at the moment. So I mean, I wouldn't be happy if someone sent me a completely AI generated page that they never actually read through. So my concerns is that people are going to think that AI is great for everything, and that it could, at this point, that it can easily replace and do like one-to-one at scale, and take away that burden. And it can help you, but it shouldn't be creating the final product that you're putting out there. And my favorite story about AI, I mean, it's tragic, but but it's my favorite story about a family in the UK that actually went mushroom picking using a guide to do that, a book that they purchased off a famous retailer website. And they ended up in a hospital. They all survived, but they ended up in a hospital with severe poisoning. And after investigation, turns out the book was completely AI generated. All of the mushroom pictures were AI generated, and some of the book parts, which they didn't get to before eating the poisonous mushrooms, they suggested trying the mushrooms to make sure that they're okay to consume. So, and I think that if you are risking to generate something like this for your prospects that could really, shoot back at you. Um, so yeah, that's I think it's not ready to replace humans in this term.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting point you make there, and I think obviously ABM is not normally life or death, um, but you could get yourself into some hot water about it if you,
I mean, imagine you do so well and you show, you get a person to read a landing page and it's crap. You're like, imagine doing that.
no, or
And
even the information is erroneous, and there's that famous book. I don't know if you ever read it because obviously you're a bit of a linguist and a scholar. Did you ever read that famous book, Eat, Shoots, and Leaves?
no.
And obviously the title, if you understand that, eats, shoots, and leaves. Shoots are like little stems of plants, and so depending where you put the punctuation, it can mean one thing or another thing completely different. So you can say eats, shoots, and leaves, or eats, shoots as in plants, and leaves as in leaves from a plant. So the danger in the syntax, in the grammar, in the context is everything. And I think AI. I think I was reading something interesting the other day, and I thought that's probably where we are today. Who knows where we're going to be in a year or 10 years? But a lot of people may well have filters that they actually start to filter out rather AI because you don't want to see it, and you maybe
Yeah.
maybe we're going to be able to actually look at two things and say, "Oh, actually, you know what, that's much more human generated and that's much more AI generated, and I'm able to decipher which one is which," right?
I mean, what LinkedIn is doing right now, I post on LinkedIn occasionally, and they've recently introduced this feature that suggests AI to help you improve your grammar,
Mhm.
change it a little bit, or maybe help you brainstorm a topic that you want to post about. And I mean, AI is great to help you brainstorm, even though there's now research that people who use AI to brainstorm are less creative. But um, when you're just, pressing, you're just generating and using AI to change everything you're writing, it kind of feels like bots are talking to each other on LinkedIn because like I don't know like whether this been generated by a human. And I kind of end up in a situation, those AI voice assistants
Mhm.
that you call and they sound like a human. You start talking to them like a human. They don't understand you. Then you start talking like, in keywords and stuff. They don't understand you. Then you're like, I feel like complete idiot right now.
Yeah.
It's just humiliating. It's just humiliating. And that's the experience that I could start getting on LinkedIn because like, am I talking to? I don't know. Like, who am I talking to? Like, it's embarrassing when you can't tell apart those things. And I think people are going to get more like I get aggressive with those AI assistants, and I think people will start getting aggressive with AI online assistants too.
Oh, possibly, possibly. So let's just finish off, Anna, with some rapid fire questions on about ABM rather. Um, just very quick answers from you.
Okay.
What's been your greatest ABM learning?
Audience. I mean, I think I used to be like, what kind of content can I produce to convert that account? And now I'm like, what account do I select to produce content for? So I think making sure you're going after the right people is my biggest learning.
I love that. I love that. Hardest part. What do you think the hardest part of ABM is?
It's audience. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna repeat myself. It's
Audience.
audience selection. Yeah, I think that's the biggest part. And then having the entire organization on board and, making sure they understand what you're trying to do and support you rather than, just um, not to be along the way with you.
But going back to what you said earlier in the show, learning about the ICP, the maturity, which potential accounts would become great customers. You've done a lot of that hard work, haven't you? So you've kind of been able to navigate that difficulty of audience, right?
Yes, and that is really thanks to a lot of people in the organization. Our CRO, who oversees sales and customer success, so he is able to see that correlation and realize that there are some things that we could look into to improve our ICP.
Yeah.
And then we have an amazing ops department that actually did the research for us. So I was really picking the fruit of their labor, to be honest. But you know, they have the overview, they have tools to do that, and I'm really happy that they did.
Yeah. Misconception. What would you say is the greatest misconception about ABM?
That it's just a tactic.
Mm.
I think, and that's something I mentioned, that when you think ABM can just be like a silly little project to see if you're like if you could bring along those customers. So yeah, I think this is how you get disappointed in this. This is how you get disappointed, and this is how you say, well, it doesn't work. Um,
Okay, well, let me ask you the Friday evening question. Okay, so you had
okay,
today's Tuesday. We're recording this, I think, on a Tuesday, and but let's fast forward to Friday. You've had a really tough week, and you just want to close that laptop down and have a Coke, a drink, a glass of wine, whatever your tipple is. Um, and an old colleague of yours from a previous company calls and says, "Hey, Anna, you've got to help me. I'm presenting to the CEO on Friday morning, on Monday morning rather. What's that one thing that I must include in my presentation that will make my presentation land with impact?" What would you say to me is that one thing that you should include?
are they making a presentation about their ABM strategy?
Add their strategy, yeah, to their CEO.
How is that? How does that correlate with business goals? I mean, if they're presenting to the CEO, obviously, like how does that align with the CEO's goals with the strategy? How is it going to make them look like a better leader?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's my answer. Like, you have to be very strategic about what you're doing and how that, like, results are you gonna expecting.
Yeah. Well, Anna, thank you for sharing your ABM journey with us today. And I wish you and the whole team there at Influ2 every success in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure reflecting back on everything I've done in the past 2 years. It's really helpful, especially in the time of 2025 planning.
Good stuff. Well, thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode of Let's Talk ABM, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Feel free to rate and review this podcast. Thanks so much for listening.